And the number one issue out on the campaign trail, the struggling economy. Joining us from Austin, Texas, former Bush senior advisor Karl Rove. He founded the group American Crossroads, whose goal it is to elect as many Republicans in 2012 as possible. And here with us in studio, former Obama Deputy Press Secretary Bill Burton. He heads up Priorities USA Action, a similar group designed to put Democrats in office. Gentlemen, welcome back to Fox News Sunday. Bill, let's start with you. Economist Jeffrey Sachs, who has been a supporter of the president, said this week this, quote, "We're almost 3 years into this administration. There's never been a plan, and that's what everybody feels. The president didn't lead. He waited. We have no agreements, no leadership, and frankly, I do think it's pretty odd the president's on vacation right now. Normally, I wouldn't care about such things, but the world markets are in deep crisis. It's no joke. This isn't just an August up and down little blip. This is a very serious situation." Now, this wasn't a Republican candidate or a Republican lawmaker. This was an economist who supported President Obama. Is this a problem for the president now on vacation?
Well, this is obviously a very difficult time for the country, and you don't need to be an economist to understand that middle-class families right now are really struggling. But it is not exactly like the moment that the president inherited from President George W. Bush. At a time when he came to office, 700,000 jobs a month were just being shed from the economy. Right now in this recovery, we've seen 2.3 million jobs added to the recovery. The president has done things to help the economy grow as opposed to shrink, but he'd be the first to tell you that he's not satisfied with the progress. But I tell you what, he has not had a lot of willing partners in the Republican Party to actually move forward on important jobs legislation.
Why not put out this plan before the 10-day vacation?
Well, for starters, I don't know that there's a fair-minded person in this country who doesn't think that the president shouldn't go with his family to spend a couple days before his girls go back to school. Secondly, I would say that most Americans don't need to see a bunch of bickering in Washington right now. What they need to see is lawmakers going back home to their voters and getting a sense of the urgency that those voters feel and coming back and getting to work. Now, what the president's going to do is he's going to lay out a plan for jobs. He's going to lay out his plan to cut the deficit, and Republicans will have a choice. They can either work with him or they can continue to stop progress. And if they continue to stop progress, then that is the fight that we will have in November, and the American people can decide in November which direction they want this country to go in.
Karl, you wrote in your Wall Street Journal column in June, quote, "Failing to offer a well-thought-out vision and defend it against White House demagoguery would set Republicans up for a loss in 2012. If right now voters were trying to see the Republican plan for creating jobs and increasing growth, where is that? Where do they turn? What is that plan?"
Well, you turn to each one of the candidates, and that process will unroll as we go through the primaries. I'd like to go back to something that Bill said. Look, the president has had a Democrat Congress for over 2/3 of the time that he's been in office, and a Republican House and a Democrat Senate for less than 1/3 of the time. He did have he got what he wanted. He passed the stimulus bill in 2001. He increased spending during that year as well. He got an Affordable Care Act. When the president passed the stimulus bill, he said that unemployment by this time would be 6%, that 5 million more people would be working, nearly 5 million more people working today than are working. The president's approval rating this week in Gallup on economy is 26%. There's a reason why. His policies have utterly failed. This is the 7th or 8th or 9th time that we've heard the president talk about producing a plan. And each time that he's sort of gotten around to tossing an idea out on the table, it has included only more spending, more deficit, more debt, and the American people are fed up with it.
Bill?
Well, I would say that the stimulus, for starters, did actually create jobs, and any economist would say that it helped our economy grow as opposed to shrink. What Republicans would have wanted to do, which was to do nothing. They fought the stimulus. They fought all the different things that the president has been trying to do. They fight the payroll tax cut. They fight the infrastructure bank idea. Things that we could do right now to put people back to work, Republicans are fighting. What the American people want is progress, not more intransigence.
As Deputy Press Secretary for President Obama, hold on, Karl. You were the briefer for President Obama this time last year when they were on their vacation in Martha's Vineyard. And in one briefing, you were asked what the difference was between the 2009 trip to Martha's Vineyard and the 2010 trip. And you said this: "Well, I would say the difference between last year's vacation and this year's is that since his vacation, the automotive industry is back on its feet, healthcare reform has passed, and the economy is now moving in a different direction than it was moving before." You heard Karl mention the poll out, Gallup, 26% of Americans approving of the president's handling of the economy. What's the difference between last year's trip and this year's trip?
I would say a big difference is that Republicans won the House and took the wrong lesson from that election. They won the House, and since that time, they've done nothing to actually produce jobs. They've put nothing forward that would actually partner with the president to create jobs and move this economy in the right direction. Are the poll numbers low right now? Sure. But when you're a strong leader, sometimes you have to make tough decisions that make people unhappy on both sides. But the president isn't sitting there poring over polls every single day. What he's doing is he's trying to make the right decisions for the American people.
Hey, Karl.